All right, everyone. Good afternoon. We're just starting early. I have Chief Executive of the Tribal Chairperson, Melanie Benjamin, with me. So I think we're about a minute early, which is unusual for us. Usually I'm late and I'm fighting with the technology, but for some reason, Melanie and I got it right the first time. So we're going to go play the lottery after this is over because we're feeling lucky today. First of all, Melanie Benjamin, welcome to the Pachanga.net Facebook group live. I want to welcome you. Really appreciate you coming. We started a little early. What's the weather like over in Minnesota right now?
It's beautiful. It's so nice. It's edging towards spring, and it feels just great. I think it was like 41 degrees this morning when no coats. We don't need any coats now. It's 41 degrees. It's great.
I travel a lot with Ernie Stevens, as Ernie is from Wisconsin, and what you guys up in that part of the country with your jackets and coats is just making the rest of us look so cold. I think cold's the word I'm looking for. So yeah. Whenever I go to Europe or actually even back east and stuff like that, it's like it's ridiculous. I mean, I'm not used to the coldness. I'm a California born and bred. So we have a couple people. So let's start. Melanie, welcome. As we were saying before we started, I want to tell our viewers, this is a really amazing story, and it's really indicative of a lot of issues in Indian country, it's the story of America, and it's the story of growth, and it's the story of encroachments and promises given and promises broken, and more importantly, it's a story of tribal perseverance and fighting for what is ours and what is right. And there is no better example than this recent case with the Mille reservation. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about this? What exactly is this case, and what just happened?
This case has been that the Mille band of Ojibwe has been fighting for generations. And when we think about it at Mille, it started with our leaders 165 years ago, and we had one of our leaders, his name was Shabashkung, and he traveled to Washington, D.C. numerous times just to ensure that our lands would be kept here for the generations to come. And of course, encroachment, as you talk about, people coming to the area. We had a lot of timber in the area, and so the timber barons came to cut down all the timber. And also, sheriffs burned down our houses back then so non-Indian settlers could settle here. And so that's kind of the history of that, because we do live in such a beautiful area, and we're just right on the southern and eastern part of this beautiful lake called Mille Lake here in the state of Minnesota, which is a really big lake for the sportsmen. And people come from all over the state and the region just to fish and hang out there. And as we all know, anytime we have something that's of worth or value to the outsiders, they want to come and get that. And so that's really what this is about, trying to remove the Mille band from our homelands so that they can have it and use it for their own benefit. And when we think about treaties and we think about the Constitution, and we talk about treaty as being the supreme law of the land, that a lot of people don't even recognize or want to even hear those kind of statements. And currently, when we were establishing the reservation back in 1855, we started off with 100,000 acres. And then, of course, as the agents came in looking at it, today our reservation is comprised of 61,000 acres. And that's also kind of the boundaries of the townships in the area. So they thought that would be a good measurement of how to create the reservation. Even though there are 61,000 acres of land, that we don't own that. A lot of that is owned by non-Indians and individuals. So a little bit with the history that we have a couple of treaties. 1855 is when the reservation was established. 1837, we have a hunting and fishing and gathering treaty that in the 1990s, we took that case all the way to the Supreme Court. And initially, when we took that, we were negotiating with the area and also the state of Minnesota. So we did settle out of court. It was our thought. And the deal was really good for the state. And at that time, we were poor. We didn't have money for lawsuits and things of that sort. So we agreed to that. But it so happened that the Mille Lacs County, and they led a huge lobbying campaign against a settlement. And of course, the legislature at the state of Minnesota voted against that settlement. So we went to court. And here at the Supreme Court, the decision was made and it sided with the ban. And so our hunting and fishing rights were never diminished. And that also included 13 Wisconsin tribes who also signed the treaty. So there's been a lot of bitterness against the ban, of course. And after that decision of the Supreme Court on hunting and fishing, the county started lawsuits in about 2000 saying, oh, by the way, your reservation doesn't exist. There's no such thing as the Mille Lacs Band reservation. And initially, a federal judge threw out the case, and due to lack of standing, and the county could not prove that the existence of the reservation hurt anyone. And so in 2013, we applied for the Tribal Law and Order Act status to deter crime. And the county was just, they were so upset about that. And of course, they opposed the application. And their justification was that how can you approve this tribal law and order when there is no reservation? And so
and this is all the city fathers, this is the lawyers, yes. This is the mindset of the community around you, and it's just hostile.
Always. And so of course what that did when they said that there was no reservation, so how could you actually approve federal government this tribal and law application for the Mille Lacs Band? So that triggered for the U.S. government to have to answer the question whether the reservation existed. And an M opinion was written, and the determination was that the reservation always existed. Again, county was very upset about that, and that's Mille Lacs County. So what they did is they canceled a law enforcement agreement that had been in place between the Mille Lacs Band and the Mille Lacs County, and that had been in existence for about 25 years. And so the county claimed that without their agreement, our police had no authority to act as police in Mille Lacs County. And the law enforcement, the sheriff, all of those folks, they threatened to arrest our officers for impersonating police. The county attorney has refused to prosecute crimes committed on the reservation if our tribal police had any involvement with the arrest or the investigation. So what happened, we became known as a police-free zone. So for about 2 years, all of the local gangs and out-of-state gangs and drug dealers, they came to the reservation and felt that they could deal their drugs without any fear of being arrested. So we were concerned about that, and we said that there are two questions, and we determined we were going to file the lawsuit. So it was a two-part lawsuit. And number one, whether the county was guilty of interfering with our tribal law enforcement. And of course, the judge had to answer the question about the status of the reservation. So the two questions, of course, does the reservation exist? And if so, did the county interfere with law, public safety, and law enforcement. And then on March 4th, Susan Richard Nelson answered the first question: the reservation exists. It was never disestablished. And she says over the course of more than
I still want to break something. I still want to throw something across this room right
Okay.
now. It's like, you know, I'm pissed off, man. But I'm glad I want to throw something right now.
Do you know, I've been in this position for, I first got elected in 2000, but can you imagine all of these years that I had to go to DC? I had to go to the state of Minnesota. I had to go to the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I had to go to the Department of Justice, track down people and say, we need support and we need to have a legal document that states that our reservation was never disestablished. And with this new administration in the state of Minnesota, we shared that opinion with the governor and the lieutenant governor, and that's Governor Tim Walz and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. And so we submitted all that information again after all of these years we've been working with governors in the state of Minnesota. So Keith Ellison, who is our Attorney General, took that and did analysis on it. And of course, they agreed with the feds and said that same thing. And even though we knew that was in the background, there wasn't a lot of discussion about it because of whatever happens politically. And so here we are. And it's interesting that the county says it will appeal the case to the circuit court and then to the Supreme Court. But like I had in our little introduction before we went online, I talked about that the county taxpayers are starting to ask questions because we've spent millions and millions of dollars here in this county to fight this. And property taxes are going up, and I think it's been like $6 or $7 million for this court case that the county is. So it's huge.
So what does McGirt mean for you in going down the road? Doesn't it strengthens your case, doesn't it?
Yes, it's we really do. Yeah, when you think about that McGirt in Nebraska versus Parker, that these really help to that when we look at our case that it is strong. But of course, you never know.
Right.
Nothing's ever certain. And so we're going forward. We're happy. We're elated. We can provide this court case to our members to say that was always been in the back of our mind. When are they going to kick us out of here and say that, the reservation doesn't exist? And we've all known that it has. We've lived here since the beginning of time. So it was great.
Like I told you, before we started, when I started Pechanga.net 24 years ago, my intention was to try to make sense of what the dominant culture was saying about us. It was, so I started gathering articles in newspapers and figuring out. And one of the things I figured out pretty quickly was that the Mille Lacs Messenger, which is your local newspaper, was very hostile towards your tribe. Every article that I read from that newspaper was always, and they had a reporter too that just had a real bee in his bonnet about you guys. And there was also the fishing issues at Mille Lacs, and they, about what you could do and custom tradition. So, and then hunting and land and stuff like that. But, when I hear you talk about this, I hear so many parallels to my own tribe and our issues and, having our ancestors having to go to Washington, D.C. and to our state capitals to, beg for relief and hat in hand and asking them to do the right thing. We didn't have the money or the resources to play the game,
Exactly.
And it wasn't until gaming that we had the resources. And, and I'll say it again, you get the justice you can afford in this country. And without gaming and without that revenue, you would have been at the mercy of this attorney general, but you fought back because you knew it was the right thing. And yeah, it was millions of dollars that could go to our social services, millions
Right.
of dollars that can go to our elders and education programs. But what you've done is that the next generation has less worry than you have. This is established law, or will be established law, and
Right.
these people can go pound sand. You know what I mean? And part of it is, they don't want to admit, and because the Native American narrative messes up the narrative of an immaculate conception of America. You know what I mean? It wasn't like that, and these unjust laws and these unjust feelings towards the tribes and your tribes just ridiculous. Like over 24 years that I personally have been seeing this. And so and all of a sudden here we have something saying, yeah, it was not disestablished. We are here, we have always been here. And the city fathers, it just makes them mad. They become the king of all they observe, you know what I mean, except this little piece of land that they don't control over there.
Exactly.
And that's what tribal sovereignty is. And so just an amazing victory for your people. I can imagine. What was the celebration like? Have you guys can I come to the parade?
Yes, you can. We're planning. We are going to play. We're still under this COVID kind of protocols, but we said we're going to have a big celebration. But I got to tell you one story real quick, just from one of the newspaper messenger, and one of the individuals that worked there, and from the area and grew up here, and they were poor. And what he said, he told a story one time. We were poor growing up, but on that social status ladder, we knew we weren't the poorest. We knew the Indians were poorer than us, and that gave us a little, up. But when economic development came to the region, all of a sudden the Indians moved up the social status a little bit. And he said people are mad because somebody had to go down. Indians weren't the poorest anymore. And I thought, wow, what a story.
Did he know there was people in the rooms listening when he said that? Was he aware that somebody was there, natives in the room, heard him say that?
Yeah, that's a pretty amazing when you think about it.
Well, I mean, I just see so many parallels to my own tribe and our story. And when we opened our casino, the amount of hostility that we got from the local residents, and now it's a completely different story. Pachanga is an important part of the community, and I think a lot of it has to do with we've proven ourselves time and time again. But it's what's amazing to me is just how inherent some of this racism is, and no matter how good you do, no matter how well you pull yourself up or pull your people up, it's just not going to be good enough, because you're still always going to be them or the other. But
Yeah.
you know what? We have ourselves, we have our culture, we have our history, and you have a leader for the Treaty of 1855 whose words are still relevant and still resonate today. That's called being a Native American.
Exactly.
That is being a Native American. When the words of our ancestors still have an impact on our lives and stuff like that. So that is an incredible story. I'm just blown away. It's just such a wonderful, very seldom do we get these type of victories. And I think McGirt was important. I think with yours, this is important. And I think hopefully we'll see more cases where the tribes are recognized as the true owners, historical owners of their own land, which is even silly just to say, but that's what we have to do, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
So what are your plans next? What are you guys going to do? I know the question I wanted to ask you. Now, one of the things that when I went to your reservation, I spoke in there probably like 10 years ago or something like that. Your casino had a part where you had a line down the middle of the casino, where one side where you couldn't gamble and the other side where you can get. Is that still the case?
No. No.
Remember that? Do you remember
No, I
Yeah.
don't remember that. No, I don't.
Oh boy, I must have when I was drinking.
Are you sure you were at our casino? Because when we opened that casino back in the day, the chairman at the time was Arthur Gabo, and he said, now that we opened this casino, we're never going to close it.
Wow.
And so, but no, I don't remember that.
Oh wow! Oh, then I must have been another one. Was it? So what does this mean for the tribe for expansion? You know, the big fear of the community is always that now you're going to move beyond your reservation and open a casino downtown Mille Lacs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How do you deal with this type of rumor?
Well, and we've been doing this for years, of course, and because the Mille Lacs County has put fear into the citizens, and a lot of folks that now that they live on the reservation, they're scared to death now. They have to adhere to what Chief Benjamin says, but and actually nothing really changes, because even though we do have the boundaries of the reservation, we can't tax non-Indians, we can't zone non-Indians, we can't take non-Indians to court. These are all these laws that are out there that have a implication. And when you think about it, what a waste of taxpayers' money, because the existence of the reservation does not impact non-Indian landowners. Of course, it's emotional impact for band members. It means that our homelands are protected. And even though many of our lands were stolen, our reservation still exists, and it will exist forever. And that is such a huge implication for each and every one of us when we think about it. And I think about all those elders that have walked on, and all of the energy and the fight they put into this mission to make sure that we protect our homeland. And I am just so humbled and honored that I was here to be able to carry that on. So I'm very elated. I'm like over the moon.
Yeah, you touch on something really important, which is, the elders that weren't here to celebrate, and they knew this was our land. They knew it was never given up. And, when they pass into to the next, world, I think they're going to be happy for us too. You know what I mean? I think about that with gaming. I think about my grandmother who didn't live long enough to see what is here today, but I think in her heart she'd be very proud of us and what we've accomplished and what we're doing with our opportunity. So, well, Chief Benjamin, I won't take you anymore longer. I really appreciate you coming here and sharing the story with our Facebook group. It's an amazing story. It's a great victory. And like I said, it resonates with a lot of tribes across Indian country, because a lot of what's happened to you is shared with Indian country. A lot of people don't respect the reservation, and they don't respect the boundaries or the land and water and hunting rights. But, every victory, every little victory like yours is a victory for everyone across Indian country. So thank you very much. We appreciate your fight. We appreciate the victory. And it's an honor to talk to you. And thank you very much for being on Facebook Live podcast. So thank you very much. And thanks for everyone for joining us. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Hello and goodbye, everyone. And thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.